The massive library on Nexus Prime stretched endlessly in all directions. Commander Yoon Tai-jin walked slowly between the towering shelves, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. He had been searching through old records for 3 days now, looking for anything that might help them fight the growing threat in space. The Galactic Council had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. Hundreds of different alien species worked together, sharing knowledge and keeping peace. But lately, something dark was coming from the outer edges of space. Ships were disappearing. Entire colonies were going silent. The Council's military forces were getting worried. Tai-jin stopped at a dusty section marked Ancient Texts, Unverified. His fingers traced over old data crystals and metal tablets. Most of this stuff was probably just stories and myths, but sometimes old stories held pieces of truth. "Find anything interesting?" a voice asked behind him. He turned to see Dr. Park So-min approaching with a small cart full of research materials. The xenoarchaeologist had been studying old civilizations for most of her life. Her gray hair was pulled back in a simple style, and her eyes showed the kind of tiredness that came from reading too many old books. "Just legends and fairy tales," Tai-jin replied, "though I keep seeing the same word mentioned in different texts. Humans. Ever heard of them?" So-min's eyes brightened. "Actually, yes. That's exactly what I've been researching. Look at this." She pulled out a data pad and showed him several translated documents. "I've found references to humans in records from at least 40 different dead civilizations. The descriptions are always similar." Tai-jin read the text on the screen. The words described creatures that walked on 2 legs, had hair on their heads, and came from a world so dangerous that it constantly tried to kill them. These humans were said to be incredible fighters who never gave up, even when facing impossible odds. "Sounds like mythology to me," Tai-jin said, but he kept reading. The stories were strangely detailed for myths. They mentioned specific tactics, weapon types, and even ship designs. "That's what I thought too," So-min said. "But look at this part." She pointed to a section of text. 12 different species, spread across thousands of light years, all describe the same battle formation. They call it the human wall. Ships arranged in overlapping defensive positions that somehow became stronger when attacked. Before Tai-jin could respond, an alarm began echoing through the library. Both of them looked up as the lights changed to emergency red. A voice spoke over the communication system. "All council members report to the main chamber immediately. Priority 1 alert." They hurried through the corridors of the massive station. Other beings from dozens of species were moving in the same direction. Tai-jin recognized Vorthons like himself, with their blue-tinted skin and tall frames. There were also Kaldari, who looked almost human except for their silver eyes and pointed ears. Thick-armed Gorlans walked alongside graceful ethereals whose bodies seemed to glow with inner light. The council chamber was in chaos when they arrived. Hundreds of representatives were talking loudly in their various languages. At the center of the room, Chancellor Nimtar stood at the speaking platform. The ethereal leader raised his glowing hands for silence. "We have received disturbing reports from the Kepler sector," Nimtar announced. His voice carried to every corner of the huge chamber. 3 more star systems have gone dark. No distress calls, no survivors. Our scout ships found only debris and empty worlds. Worried voices began speaking at once. Tai-jin felt his stomach tighten. The Kepler sector was only 50 light-years from some of the most populated council worlds. "What could do this?" someone called out. "We believe it is the work of the Keth-Mori Empire," Nimtar continued. "Intelligence reports suggest they have advanced far beyond our previous estimates. Their technology appears superior to ours in every category." An older Kaldari stood up from his seat. Ambassador Lee Sung-ho was known for his calm wisdom, but today his silver eyes showed deep concern. "Chancellor," Sung-ho said, "my people have an old saying. When the darkness comes, light remembers how to shine. Perhaps it is time to look beyond conventional solutions." "What do you suggest, Ambassador?" Nimtar asked. Sung-ho glanced toward So-min, who was sitting in the research section. "Dr. Park has been studying ancient records. There may be knowledge from the past that could help us." All eyes turned to So-min. She stood slowly, clearly nervous about speaking to the entire council. I have been researching references to a species called humans. The records suggest they were exceptional warriors who, fairy tales, Nimtar interrupted with a dismissive wave. We need real solutions, not bedtime stories. But the evidence suggests, Somin began. The evidence suggests we need better weapons and stronger shields, the Chancellor said firmly. Not mythical creatures from children's books. This session is concluded. Military commanders will meet in 1 hour to discuss real strategic options. As the chamber began to empty, Taejin noticed Ambassador Sung Ho approaching Somin. The old Keldari looked around carefully before speaking in a low voice. Doctor, I would like to speak with you privately. There is something I have not shared with the council. They found a quiet corner in one of the station's observation decks. Through the massive window, they could see stars stretching in all directions. Somewhere out there, entire worlds were being destroyed. 15 years ago, Sung Ho said quietly, our deep space monitoring station received a transmission. It was very weak from far beyond our mapped space. The signal contained coordinates and a simple message. What did it say? Somin asked. Remember our friends. Sung Ho handed her a small data crystal. The transmission was encoded in an old Kaldari dialect that only a few scholars still know. But the coordinates, they point to empty space in a region we have never explored. Somin's hands shook slightly as she took the crystal. Do you think? I think, Sung Ho said, looking out at the stars, that sometimes fairy tales are history that has been forgotten. And sometimes when everything seems lost, the most impossible things become possible. In the distance, another alarm began to sound. More ships were disappearing. More worlds were going silent. The darkness was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. But in a forgotten corner of an ancient library, 3 beings held a small crystal that might contain the coordinates to hope itself. They did not know it yet, but they had just taken the first step toward changing the fate of the galaxy. The legends were about to become real. The mining world of Kepler 442b was dying. From the bridge of his cargo ship, Captain Kim Min-soo watched in horror as massive alien warships rained fire down on the planet below. The Kaith Mori had arrived 3 hours ago with over 200 ships. Now the world's surface was covered in flames. Captain, we're receiving evacuation requests from 17 different locations, reported his communications officer. There are still thousands of people down there. Min-soo gritted his teeth. His ship, the Peaceful Dawn, was designed to carry mining equipment, not refugees. But he could not just leave people to die. How many can we fit, he asked. Maybe 300 if we pack them in the cargo holds, came the reply. 300 out of thousands. It was not nearly enough, but it was better than nothing. Send the coordinates to all surface teams. Tell them we'll make multiple trips, if we can. The first group of evacuees included mostly families with children. Min-soo watched through the security cameras as they crowded into spaces meant for metal and machines. Among them was a young woman who helped organize the others and keep the children calm. Her name was Choi Hye-jin, and she was an engineer from the main mining facility. My family is still down there, she told Min-soo when they met in the corridor. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed the fear she was trying to hide. My parents and my younger brother. They were working in Sector 7 when the attack started. We'll go back for them, Min-soo promised, though he was not sure he could keep that promise. As they prepared for their second trip to the surface, the Kaith Mori fleet suddenly changed formation. The alien ships were unlike anything in the Council database. They were dark and angular, with weapons that glowed with purple energy. When they fired, their beams cut through Council defense shields like they were made of paper. Captain, the pilot called out. Kaith Mori fighters are moving to intercept evacuation ships. They're not letting anyone leave. Min-soo ran to the bridge window. He could see other cargo ships like his trying to escape the planet's gravity well. Kaith Mori fighter craft were hunting them down one by one. Brilliant flashes of light marked where ships and their passengers were destroyed. They're killing civilians, someone whispered. Min-soo had heard rumors about the Kaith Mori, but seeing it with his own eyes was different. These creatures did not just want to conquer. They wanted to completely destroy anyone who opposed them. Change course, he ordered. Get us out of here before they notice us. But what about the people still on the surface? Asked Hyejin, who had come to the bridge. Minsu looked down at the burning planet. I'm sorry. If we go back, we'll all die, and these 300 people will die with us. The peaceful dawn barely escaped as the last of the planet's orbital defenses fell. Behind them, Kepler 442b became a ball of fire and smoke. An entire world and everyone still on it was gone. News of the attack reached Nexus Prime within hours. In the Council's military headquarters, General Baek Dongwook stood before a massive display showing the galactic map. Red zones marked areas under Kethmori control. There were far too many red zones. At their current rate of advance, he explained. To the assembled officers, the Kethmori will reach the core worlds in 18 months, maybe less if they continue to accelerate. Admiral Jang Yeon-soo studied the tactical data with growing concern. What about our fleet numbers? Can we match them in direct combat? No, Dongwook replied bluntly. Our ships are simply not powerful enough. Their shields absorb our weapons fire, while their guns punch through our defenses like they don't exist. In every engagement, we lose 3 ships for every one of theirs we destroy. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Unless something changed dramatically, the Galactic Council would lose this war. In her research lab, Dr. Park So-min was working frantically through old records. She had been given official permission to investigate the human references, though most council members still thought it was a waste of time. But the more she read, the more convinced she became that these stories were real. She found detailed battle reports written by long-dead civilizations. They described humans using tactics that seemed impossible. Humans who turned defensive positions into offensive weapons. Humans who won battles by doing things their enemies thought were suicide. One text particularly caught her attention. It was from a species called the Corvani, who had been extinct for over 2,000 years. They wrote about a human commander who had defeated a much larger enemy fleet by hiding ships inside an asteroid field, then using the asteroids themselves as weapons. Dr. Park? A voice interrupted her thoughts. She looked up to see Commander Yoon Tae-jin entering her lab. He looked exhausted. The military had been working around the clock since the Kepler attack. I've been thinking about what you said, he continued. About the humans. Do you really believe they might still exist somewhere? So-min gestured to the data crystals covering her desk. Every culture that mentions them says the same thing. They came from somewhere beyond the known galaxy. If they made that journey once, maybe they could make it again. Tae-jin picked up one of the crystal tablets. What would it take to search for them? We would need to send a ship to those coordinates Ambassador Sung-ho provided. It's far beyond our normal patrol routes in completely uncharted space. How far? About 3 months of travel time, even with our fastest scout ships. Tae-jin was quiet for a long moment. Outside the lab windows, they could see Council warships preparing for another deployment. More young people heading off to fight an enemy they could not defeat. What if you're wrong? He asked finally. What if we send a ship out there and find nothing but empty space? So-min met his eyes steadily. Then we lose one ship instead of losing everything. 2 hours later, Admiral Jang Yeon-soo stood in her private office with Tae-jin and So-min. She had been reading So-min's research reports with increasing interest. The Council will never approve an official mission based on ancient legends, she said. But if a scout ship happened to develop engine problems that required it to emergency jump to specific coordinates, Tae-jin understood. An unofficial mission, off the books. Exactly. Captain Lim Jae-hyun is our best long-range scout commander. His ship, the Truth Seeker, is fast and quiet. If anyone can find answers out there, it's him. 3 days later, the Truth Seeker departed Nexus Prime on what the official records called a routine deep space patrol. Only a handful of people knew their real destination. As the scout ship jumped into hyperspace, heading for coordinates that might lead to salvation or nothing at all, the Kethmori continued their advance. More worlds fell. More people died. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient legends waited to either save the galaxy or prove that sometimes Hope was just another word for desperation. But legends, as some people were about to discover, had a way of becoming real when they were needed most. The truth seeker drifted silently through empty space, its engines powered down to minimal levels. Captain Lim Jae-hyun stood on the bridge, staring out at the star field that looked exactly like every other piece of empty space he had ever seen. They had been at these coordinates for 6 hours and found absolutely nothing. "Sir," called Lieutenant Oh Da-eun from the communication station, "I'm still not detecting any artificial signals. Whatever transmitted those coordinates isn't here anymore." Jae-hyun nodded slowly. He had expected this, really. The transmission Ambassador Sung-ho received had been sent 15 years ago. Even if something had been here then, it was probably long gone by now. "Should we expand our search pattern?" asked his second officer. "Give it another hour," Jae-hyun decided. "Then we'll head back and report negative findings." Dr. Seo Ji-won looked up from her science station. The ship's xenobiologist had volunteered for this mission because she believed in So-min's research. Now she was starting to wonder if they were all just chasing fairy tales. "Wait," Da-eun said suddenly. "I'm getting something. Very faint, about 2,000 kilometers off our starboard side." The main screen shifted to show a tiny object floating in space. It was clearly artificial, but unlike any technology in the Council database, the object was roughly cylindrical, about the size of a shuttle and covered with panels that seemed to shift color in the starlight. "It's definitely not natural," Ji-won reported after running several scans. "The hull material is unknown, but it's giving off trace energy signatures. Whatever it is, it's still active." Jae-hyun studied the strange object. Could it be a probe? Possibly. The energy pattern suggests some kind of recording or transmission device. Any signs of weapons or defensive systems? None that I can detect. It appears to be completely passive. Jae-hyun made his decision. "Bring us closer, carefully." As the truth seeker approached, the probe suddenly activated. Panels along its hull began glowing with soft blue light, and the energy readings spiked dramatically. "It's responding to our presence," Ji-won announced. "Some kind of proximity trigger." Before anyone could react, a holographic image appeared above the probe. The figure was roughly humanoid, but clearly not from any species they knew. It had pale skin, dark hair, and strange clothing that looked both practical and formal. When the figure began speaking, everyone on the bridge froze in shock. "If you are receiving this message," the being said in perfect galactic standard, "then someone is in serious trouble, and you have found the emergency beacon we left behind." Da-eun's hands flew over her controls. "Sir, that's impossible. This language protocol has only existed for about 300 years. How could they know it?" The hologram continued. "My name is Captain Harrison Smith of the Earth Defense Navy. We are the species you call humans. We have been watching your galaxy for a very long time." Jae-hyun felt his heart start beating faster. Humans were real. Dr. Park had been right. "If this beacon has activated," Captain Smith continued, "it means our long-range sensors have detected a significant threat to the peaceful species of this galaxy. We remember the friends our ancestors made here long ago. We remember the debts that were never repaid." The image pointed directly at whoever was watching. "Transmitting coordinates to our current location. We are coming to help. Tell your people to prepare for our arrival." A stream of data began flowing into the truth seekers' computers. Navigation coordinates, communication frequencies, and something that looked like tactical information. "The Kethmori Empire," Smith's image said as if reading their minds, "represents the same kind of threat our ancestors faced millennia ago. Conquerors who destroy rather than build, killers who see other life as obstacles to be removed." The hologram's expression grew harder. "We have been preparing for this day for a very long time. Our ships are different now, our weapons are stronger, and we have not forgotten how to fight." Ji-won was frantically scanning the data stream. "Captain, this navigation information, if it's accurate, these humans are located in the space between galactic arms. That's over 50,000 light-years from here. How long would it take them to reach Council space?" Jae-hyun asked. "At Maximum hyperspace speeds, maybe 6 months. The hologram was wrapping up its message. We know you have no reason to trust ancient legends, but legends exist because truth becomes story over time. We are the truth behind your stories. Captain Smith saluted in a gesture that somehow conveyed both respect and determination. Earth remembers. We are coming. The image faded, and the probe began to break apart. Within minutes, it had completely disintegrated, leaving behind only empty space and the data it had transmitted. The bridge of the Truth Seeker was completely silent for almost a full minute. Finally, Dayun spoke in a whisper. They're real. Humans are actually real. Meanwhile, thousands of light years away, the Kethmori Empire was preparing its largest offensive yet. War Admiral Kothex stood on the command deck of his flagship, studying tactical displays showing the next phase of their conquest. The soft species of the inner systems will fall within 100 days, reported his intelligence officer. Their combined fleets number less than 2,000 ships. We have over 5,000. Kothex nodded with satisfaction. The Galactic Council had proven even weaker than expected. Their technology was primitive, their tactics predictable, and their will to fight seemed to break after every defeat. What is the status of the Vorthon system? He asked. Defended by their largest remaining fleet, perhaps 300 ships total. Admiral Yun Tai-jin commands their forces. I will take personal command of this attack, Kothex decided. The Vortans were one of the founding species of the Council. When their homeworld burns, the rest will surrender rather than face the same fate. Back in Council space, desperate evacuation efforts were underway. Captain Han Woo-jin pushed his cargo freighter, the Lucky Star, far beyond safe operating limits as he ferried civilians away from threatened worlds. His ship was not designed for passenger transport, but engineer Park Ji-young had worked miracles modifying the cargo holds. We can fit maybe 200 more, Ji-young reported over the intercom. But that's really pushing our life support systems. Do it, Woo-jin replied. Medical Officer Song Min-ji had volunteered to help with the evacuations, and she was working around the clock to keep the passengers healthy in the cramped conditions. These were not military ships or trained soldiers. They were ordinary people doing extraordinary things because someone had to. Because when everything was falling apart, regular people often turned out to be heroes. The Truth Seeker jumped back into hyperspace, racing toward Nexus Prime with news that would change everything. On the bridge, Captain Lim Jae-hyun looked at the strange data the human probe had given them. How do we tell the Council that their fairy tales are about to come true? He asked. Dr. Seo Ji-won was still analyzing the human technology readings, the energy signatures in this data. Captain, if these readings are accurate, human technology is centuries ahead of anything we have. How far ahead? Far enough that the Kethmori might have just made a very serious mistake. As the Truth Seeker raced home with impossible news, and the Kethmori prepared for what they thought would be their final victory, something was moving in the dark spaces between galaxies. Ancient promises were being kept. Old debts were about to be paid. And somewhere in the vast emptiness of spaceships that had been built for war were coming home to a galaxy they had never forgotten. The Vorten homeworld burned beneath a sky filled with enemy ships. Admiral Yun Tai-jin stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his fleet make their final stand against impossible odds. 47 Council ships faced 300 Kethmori, vessels in what everyone knew would be the last battle. Sir, the planetary shields are failing, reported his tactical officer. Sectors 12 through 18 are taking heavy bombardment. Tae-jin watched explosions bloom across his homeworld's surface. Each flash of light meant thousands of his people were dying. The evacuation ships had saved perhaps half the population, but millions were still down there. All ships, concentrate fire on the Kethmori command vessel, he ordered. If we're going to die, let's make it count. The Council fleet turned toward War Admiral Kothex's massive flagship. Their weapons fired in coordinated volleys, but the energy beams simply vanished against the Kethmori shields. The alien technology was too advanced. It was like attacking a fortress with wooden sticks. Kothex's return fire was devastating. 3 council ships exploded in the first exchange, then 2 more. The Kethmori weapons cut through council shields and armor like they were made of paper. "Admiral," called sensor operator Kim Young-suk from her station. "I'm detecting some kind of gravitational distortion, multiple contacts all around the system." Tae-jin frowned. "Gravitational distortion? What could cause that?" "Unknown, sir. The readings don't match anything in our database." On the Kethmori flagship, Kothex was preparing to deliver the killing blow to the planet below when his own sensors began showing strange readings. "War Admiral," his science officer reported. "Our instruments are detecting massive space-time distortions forming throughout the system." "Explain," Kothex demanded. "It appears that something very large is about to emerge from hyperspace. Multiple somethings." Kothex laughed. "More council reinforcements? Let them come. We will destroy them just as easily as we destroyed the others." But when space itself began to shimmer and twist, Kothex stopped laughing. The first ship emerged from what looked like folded reality. It was sleek and black, angular like a blade and unlike anything in any galactic database. The hull seemed to absorb light, making it difficult to look at directly. Along its sides, weapons that glowed with blue energy tracked toward the Kethmori fleet. Then another ship appeared, and another. Within minutes, 60 black vessels hung in space between the Kethmori fleet and the dying planet below. "Unknown vessels," Kothex transmitted on all frequencies. "You are interfering with Kethmori military operations. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." The response came from the largest of the black ships. The voice was calm, professional, and completely terrifying. "This is Admiral Rebecca Chen of the Terran Navy. All civilian vessels withdraw to minimum safe distance immediately. Kethmori forces, you have 30 seconds to surrender before we demonstrate why humanity survived its homeworld." Fleet Captain Moon Byung-ho, commanding one of the surviving council ships, stared at his displays in shock. "Humans," he whispered. "They're actually real." Kothex was less impressed. "Terran Navy? I have never heard of this pathetic species. You face the might of the Kethmori Empire. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Admiral Chen's reply was cold as space itself. "Time's up." What happened next redefined everyone's understanding of space combat. The human ships moved with precision that seemed impossible. They flowed through space like schools of fish, their formations shifting and adapting in real time. When they fired, Kothex learned why the ancient legends had spoken of human weapons with such fear. The blue energy beams from the human ships cut through Kethmori shields like they did not exist. Advanced alien armor that had turned aside every council weapon simply melted under human fire. In the first 60 seconds of combat, 20 Kethmori ships were reduced to expanding clouds of debris. "Impossible," Kothex screamed. "Our shields are impenetrable." His science officer was frantically analyzing the human weapons. "War Admiral, their energy output is beyond our measurement capability. They appear to be using some form of controlled antimatter projection." Kothex ordered his entire fleet to concentrate fire on the human ships. 300 Kethmori vessels turned their weapons toward the 60 human craft. The amount of energy unleashed should have vaporized anything in space. The human ships simply shrugged off the attack. "Admiral," Fleet Captain Moon reported to Tae-jin, "the human vessels appear to have some kind of adaptive shielding. The Kethmori weapons are having no effect at all." Tae-jin watched in amazement as the black ships continued their deadly work. They fought with a cold efficiency that spoke of countless battles and hard-won experience. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation, no fear. These were warriors who had been shaped by a universe that constantly tried to kill them. A new voice joined the human communications channel. "This is Captain David Kim of the destroyer Retribution. Kothex, you picked the wrong galaxy to terrorize." Kothex's flagship shuddered under concentrated human fire. His shields failed, his weapons went offline, and his engines began to overload. In desperation, he opened a channel to all Kethmori forces. "All ships retreat. Emergency jump to rally point 7. This is not over, humans." But the Kethmori discovered that retreat was not an option. The human ships had somehow created a gravity field that prevented hyperspace jumps. They were trapped. War Admiral Kothex, Admiral Chen transmitted. You are charged with genocide, the murder of civilians, and crimes against sapient life. The sentence is death. The human flagship fired a single, precise shot. Kothex's vessel simply ceased to exist. The battle lasted 43 minutes. When it was over, the entire Kethmori assault fleet had been destroyed. Not a single human ship showed significant damage. As the space around Vorthon cleared of debris, Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to the surviving Council forces. Admiral Taejin, this is Admiral Chen. We apologize for taking so long to get here. We came as soon as we received word about the threat. Taejin found his voice with difficulty. Admiral Chen, how did you know? How did you find us? Your people sent us a message, Admiral. A very old message, but we remember our friends. We always remember our friends. On the planet below, the fires were beginning to die out. Emergency services were working to save who they could. The Kethmori bombardment had been terrible, but it could have been so much worse. Dr. Seo Jiwon, aboard the Truth Seeker, was scanning the human ships with every sensor they had. Captain Lim, the energy readings from those vessels. They're using technology that shouldn't be possible. Their power output alone exceeds our entire fleet combined. Captain Lim Jae-hyun shook his head in wonder. The probe message said they had been preparing for this day. How long do you think they've been getting ready? Based on these readings? Centuries. Maybe longer. Admiral Chen's voice came over the general communication channel once more. To all Council forces, we know you have many questions. We will answer what we can. But first, there are medical supplies and repair equipment aboard our ships. Your wounded take priority. As human shuttles began moving toward the damaged Council vessels, Taejin realized that everything had changed. The legends were real. The humans had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. But somewhere in the darkness of space, Supreme War Master Vexton was receiving reports of the disaster at Vorthon. The Kethmori Empire's most powerful fleet had been completely destroyed by an unknown enemy. The war was far from over, it was just beginning. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like this. Representatives from hundreds of species filled every seat, while millions more watched through broadcasts across the galaxy. At the center of it all stood Admiral Rebecca Chen and her senior officers, the first humans to address the Council in over 3,000 years. Chancellor Nimtar, who had dismissed human legends as fairy tales just weeks before, now found himself struggling to maintain his composure. These beings looked almost exactly like the ancient descriptions, but their technology was clearly centuries beyond anything in known space. Admiral Chen, Nimtar began carefully. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we thank you for your intervention at Vorthon. However, we must ask, who exactly are you? Rebecca Chen stepped forward. She was tall and lean, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of countless battles. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets across impossible distances. We are the descendants of the humans your ancestors knew long ago, she said. The explorers who came to this galaxy when both our species were young. We are their children, and we have come home. Dr. Park So-min sat in the research section, hardly believing what she was hearing. Years of studying ancient texts had led to this moment. She raised her hand to speak. Dr. Park, the Chancellor acknowledged. Admiral, the ancient records speak of humans who helped defend this galaxy against a great threat, then disappeared. What happened to those original explorers? A new figure stepped forward from the human delegation. Dr. Amanda Foster was clearly the expedition's historian, carrying herself with the quiet dignity of someone who spent her life preserving the past. The first human expedition arrived in this galaxy approximately 3,847 years ago, Dr. Foster explained. They came through experimental faster-than-light technology that unfortunately failed, stranding them here. Over the following centuries, they helped your ancestors fight against a species called the Devourers. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several elder representatives nodded in recognition. The Devourers were mentioned in many ancient texts as a nightmare from the distant past. When the threat was ended, Dr. Foster continued, the surviving humans settled on various worlds throughout the galaxy. They lived among your people, shared their knowledge, and eventually died of old age. Their children integrated into your societies. In some sense, they never really left. Ambassador Kang Tae-ho, the human diplomatic representative, took over the explanation. Earth developed very differently after the first expedition departed. We faced ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, and eventually 3 devastating world wars. Each catastrophe made us stronger, more adaptable, more determined to survive. Admiral Tae-jin, who had been promoted after the Vorthen battle, stood to address the humans. Admiral Chen, how did you know about the Kethmori threat? How long? Have you been watching us? Captain David Kim, Chen's second-in-command, answered this question. We established deep space monitoring stations throughout this galactic arm approximately 200 years ago. When we detected the Kethmori expansion pattern, we began preparing for intervention. 200 years? Chancellor Nimtar asked, in shock. You have been observing us for 2 centuries? Earth learned long ago that the best way to survive is to be prepared for anything, Admiral Chen replied. We studied your languages, your technology, your politics, and your military capabilities. We hoped we would never need to intervene, but we prepared for the possibility. General Nam Hyun-soo, commander of Human Ground Forces, stepped forward. His uniform was different from the naval officers, marked with symbols that seemed to represent countless battles. The Kethmori represent the same pattern we have seen before, he said grimly. Conquerors who destroy rather than build, species who see other life as obstacles to be eliminated. Earth has faced such enemies many times. How do you fight such overwhelming numbers? Asked General Bak Dong-wook. Our intelligence suggests the Kethmori Empire has thousands of ships. General Nam smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. We don't fight fair, General. We fight to win, and we always remember who our friends are. Dr. Foster activated a holographic display showing human history. Images of devastated cities, burning forests, and nuclear wastelands filled the chamber. This is Earth during the resource wars, she explained. 90% of the planet's surface was uninhabitable. The human population dropped to less than 1 billion. But we survived. We rebuilt. We learned. More images appeared. Underground cities, generation ships, orbital habitats, space-based industries that dwarfed anything the Council had ever built. This is Earth today, Dr. Foster continued. Home to 12 billion humans and the center of an interstellar civilization spanning 47 star systems. We have colonies on worlds that would kill most species within hours. We have built cities in the void between stars. We have made homes in places where life should not exist. Ambassador Lee Sung-ho, the elderly Kaldari who had first shared the human coordinates, stood slowly. The message we received 15 years ago, he said. It said, we remember our friends. What did that mean? Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly. It meant exactly what it said, Ambassador. Your people were kind to our ancestors. The Kaldari shared their knowledge freely, offered shelter to human refugees, and never asked for anything in return. Earth remembers such kindness. She gestured to her officers. Captain Kim is descended from humans who lived among your people. Dr. Foster's great-grandmother was raised by a Kaldari family after her parents died fighting the Devourers. We have not forgotten the debts we owe. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. These humans had been preparing for this moment for centuries, driven by ancient loyalties and old promises. What about the Kethmori? Asked Admiral Jang Yeon-soo. Do you believe you can defeat their entire empire? Admiral Chen exchanged glances with her officers. Supreme War Master Vexton is mobilizing their core fleets as we speak. Our estimates suggest they have approximately 5,000 ships remaining. And you have brought 60 ships to face them? Chancellor Nimtar asked in disbelief. We have brought 60 ships to this system, Chen corrected. Earth is not our only world anymore, Chancellor. Humanity has been very busy during our long exile. New contacts began appearing on the chamber's tactical displays. Ships were emerging, from hyperspace throughout Council territory. Dozens of vessels, then hundreds, then thousands, all bearing the blue and white symbol of Earth. Fleet Admiral Jessica Nakamura's voice came over the communication system from her flagship somewhere in deep space. Admiral Chen, the first fleet is in position. The second and third fleets are moving to intercept Kethmori reinforcement routes. All colonial defense forces are standing by. Captain Shin Dong-hyuk reported from another sector. The fortress worlds are ready, Admiral. New Terra's orbital defense platforms are online. The mining colonies have been evacuated to secure positions. Commander An Soo-jin's voice joined. The reports. Civilian evacuation routes are secure. All non-combatants have been moved to designated safe zones. As report after report came in, the Council representatives began to understand the true scope of human preparation. This was not a rescue mission. This was a coordinated military operation that had been planned for decades. How many ships do you have? Admiral Tae-jin asked quietly. Admiral Chen smiled, and this time it was genuinely warm. Enough, Admiral. More than enough. Dr. Park So-min stood up from her seat, her voice shaking with emotion. The legends were true. All of them. The part about humans never giving up, never abandoning their friends, never forgetting a debt. The legends were incomplete, Admiral Chen replied. They told you about our ancestors. They could not tell you what we became while we were gone. On the chamber's main screen, images of the approaching Kethmori fleet appeared. Thousands of ships moving toward the core worlds with the intention of ending the Galactic Council forever. Supreme War Master Vexton believes he is about to win this war, Admiral Chen said, studying the enemy formation. He is about to learn that some legends are more dangerous than reality. As the human fleet took position throughout the galaxy, and the Kethmori armada approached for what they thought would be their final victory, the stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of countless worlds. The age of legends was ending. The age of truth was about to begin. Supreme War Master Vexton stood on the command deck of his massive flagship, studying the tactical displays with growing satisfaction. 5,000 Kethmori ships moved through space in perfect formation, heading toward the heart of Council territory. This would be the final battle. After today, the galaxy would belong to the Kethmori Empire. War Master, reported his intelligence officer, our scouts confirm that the humans have positioned their forces throughout multiple systems. They appear to be preparing for a coordinated defense. Vexton laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. How many ships do these legendary humans possess? Approximately 2,000 vessels, War Master. They are outnumbered more than 2 to 1. Foolish mammals, Vexton growled. They should have stayed in whatever dark hole they crawled out of. Today they will learn why the Kethmori Empire rules the galaxy. But Supreme War Master Vexton had made the same mistake as every other conqueror who had underestimated humanity. He was thinking like someone who had never faced a species forged by a planet that constantly tried to kill them. Admiral Park Sang-min commanded the Joint Human Council Task Force defending the approaches to Nexus Prime. His fleet was a mixture of sleek human vessels and the more familiar Council ship designs. The sight would have been impossible just months ago. Now it represented the galaxy's last hope. Admiral, reported his tactical officer, the Kethmori main fleet will be in weapons range in 30 minutes. Park nodded grimly. He had studied the human tactical manuals that Admiral Chen had shared with Council forces. Human warfare was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was based on turning every disadvantage into an advantage, using the enemy's strengths against them. Signal all ships, Park ordered. Implement formation Delta 7. Human vessels take point positions. Council ships provide support fire and sensor coverage. On Earth, billions of humans watched the approaching battle through real-time transmissions. This was their return to the galaxy that had sheltered their ancestors. Win or lose, they would show the universe what humanity had become during their long exile. Fleet Admiral Jessica Nakamura coordinated the overall human response from her command ship in deep space. Multiple holographic displays showed battle formations across dozens of star systems. This was not just one battle, but a carefully orchestrated campaign designed to end the Kethmori threat forever. Admiral, reported Captain Shin Dong-hyuk from the fortress world of New Terra. All orbital. Defense platforms are online. If any Kethmori ships break through the outer defenses, we're ready for them. Understood, Captain. Remember, we're not just defending territory, we're protecting our new friends. Commander An Sujin was managing civilian evacuations in the VAR contested systems. Her ships moved through space lanes that would soon become battlefields carrying refugees to safety. It was dangerous work, but humanity had learned long ago that protecting innocents was worth any risk. This is Transport Group 7, she reported. We've successfully evacuated the Kepler mining colonies. All civilians are secure. The first engagement began in the Proxima system, where a Kethmori advance force met a human patrol fleet. Captain Kim Minsu, now commanding a joint human Kaldari squadron, watched as human ships demonstrated their tactical superiority. The Kethmori attacked in their standard formation, expecting to overwhelm the smaller human force through superior numbers. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. Human ships flowed through space like liquid metal, their formations shifting and adapting in real time. When the Kethmori tried to surround them, the humans simply melted away and reformed elsewhere. When the aliens concentrated their fire, human vessels appeared behind them, as if they had teleported. They're using the asteroid field as cover, observed engineer Choi Hai-jin, who had volunteered to serve aboard Minsu's ship. But they're not just hiding in it, they're turning the asteroids into weapons. Human ships had taken position among the larger asteroids, using them as both shields and projectiles. When Kethmori vessels moved to attack, carefully placed explosions sent massive rocks hurtling toward them at incredible speeds. "This is impossible," transmitted a Kethmori commander. "How are they predicting our movements?" The answer lay in human tactical doctrine, developed over centuries of warfare. Humans had learned to think like their enemies, to anticipate not just what they would do, but why they would do it. Every human commander studied the psychology of conquest, the patterns that all aggressive species followed. Supreme War Master Vexitan received reports of the Proxima engagement with growing alarm. His advance force had been completely destroyed, without inflicting significant damage on the human fleet. "Impossible," he snarled. "Order all fleets to converge on the human home system. We will destroy Earth itself and end this threat." But when the Kethmori fleets changed course toward Earth, they discovered that the humans had been expecting this move. Admiral Chen's voice came over all communication frequencies, calm and confident. "Supreme War Master Vextan, this is Admiral Rebecca Chen. You are making the same mistake every conqueror makes. You assume your enemies think like you do. Surrender now, human, and your deaths will be swift," Vextan replied. "You're going to attack Earth because you think it's our weakness," Chen continued, ignoring his threat. "Our homeworld, our heart. The place we'll sacrifice everything to defend." Vextan smiled cruelly. "Exactly. That's your first mistake, War Master. Earth stopped being our weakness a very long time ago. As the Kethmori fleets approached the solar system, they found something that defied all their intelligence reports. Earth was not defended by a few desperate ships making a last stand. The entire system had been turned into a fortress. Orbital defense platforms surrounded not just Earth, but every planet and major moon. Asteroid belts had been converted into weapons emplacements. Even the gas giants had been modified, their gravitational fields weaponized to trap enemy ships. "How many defense platforms do they have?" Vextan demanded. "Sensors indicate over 10,000 installations, War Master. And they're all powered by technology we cannot identify." Dr. Park So-min, observing from a council monitoring station, watched as human engineering accomplishments redefined what was possible. "They didn't just build defenses," she whispered. "They redesigned an entire star system for warfare." The battle for Earth lasted 18 hours. The Kethmori threw everything they had at the human homeworld, only to discover that every attack had been anticipated, every strategy countered, every weakness exploited. Human ships didn't just fight the Kethmori fleet, they herded it, channeling enemy movements into carefully prepared killing zones. Asteroid fields became gravitational traps. Gas giant moons launched coordinated bombardments. Even Earth's moon revealed hidden weapons that could destroy capital ships with single shots. "This is not a battle," observed Admiral Tae-jin, who was coordinating with human forces. "This is a demonstration. They're showing the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity." As the last Kethmori ships were destroyed or surrendered, Supreme War Master Vex Tan found himself alone on his crippled flagship. Admiral Chen appeared on his viewscreen, flanked by council representatives including Ambassador Lee Sung-ho. "War Master," Chen said quietly, "the Kethmori Empire is finished. Your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies have surrendered. It's over. You cannot have won," Vex Tan protested. "We had superior numbers, superior technology." "You had superior arrogance," Chen replied. "You assumed that because you could destroy things, you were strong. Humanity learned a different lesson. We learned that true strength comes from protecting what you love." Ambassador Sung-ho stepped forward. "The Galactic Council offers the Kethmori people a choice. Integrate peacefully into galactic civilization, or face permanent exile from civilized space." Vex Tan's last words before his ship's life support failed were, "Impossible. You were just legends." 6 months later, Dr. Park So-min stood in the same library on Nexus Prime where this story had begun, but now the ancient texts had been joined by new records, human historical databases, technical manuals, cultural exchanges. The legends had become reality, and reality had proven more amazing than any story. "Dr. Park?" a familiar voice called. She turned to see Admiral Yoon Tae-jin approaching, but now he wore the insignia of the United Defense Force, a joint human council organization formed after the war. "Admiral," she greeted him, "how are the integration programs proceeding?" "Better than anyone expected," he replied. "Human technology is helping us build ships we never imagined possible. And we're sharing our knowledge of this galaxy's cultures and history." Through the library windows, they could see human and council ships patrolling together through space. Engineers from dozens of species worked side by side on projects that would have been impossible before first contact. "The legends were true," So-min said softly. "But they were incomplete. They told us about human strength, human persistence, human loyalty. They didn't tell us about human friendship." Admiral Chen's voice came over the station's communication system, addressing a gathering of council representatives. "The age of human legend is over. The age of human partnership has begun."